Okay, let me just start with a question for you. What if the simple act of proving who you are online, logging into a website, creating a new account, what if that was costing the global economy trillions of dollars every single year?
It sounds like a bit of an exaggeration, doesn't it? Something out of sci-fi. But the sources we're digging into today suggest it's not only true, but it's a quantifiable result of a huge architectural failure at the very heart of the internet.
And it's a failure we all feel. I mean, every single day. You're just trying to buy something quickly or maybe check an old bill, and boom, there it is. The friction.
The login wall.
Yeah, the dreaded password reset loop, the two-factor codes, that feeling of trying to remember which one of your password managers has the right combination of letters and numbers and symbols, we just sort of accept it as the cost of doing business online.
We do. We treat it like it's our fault, a personal headache.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so much bigger than that. That daily annoyance, it's actually a symptom of something so fundamental. It's been called the internet's original sin.
And it's a flaw that isn't just wasting our individual time, but is siphoning off, nearly $2 trillion a year from the global economy?
That's the figure. An astronomical amount of waste.
So that's really the core of our mission for this deep dive. We're going way back to the foundations of the web to really deconstruct that original sin, the fact that the internet was built without a native identity layer. It has no idea who you are.
And we're going to reveal the systemic cost of that omission, a cost we're calling the password tax. And to be clear, this isn't about fraud or theft. This is purely the economic drain from wasted human time.
Right. It's a number so big, it's like an entire G7 country's economy just vanishing every year.
Vanishing into thin air. But then, and this is the important part, we pivot to the solution.
This is where it gets really interesting. We're going to explore how this deceptively simple open protocol called Nostr, it stands for Notes and Other Stuff Transmitted by Relays, is basically poised to solve this trillion-dollar problem.
We'll get into the weeds of how it works, how it gives the user what we're calling a sovereign key.
I'm Satoshi.
And I'm Satoshi.
If you listened to our last deep dive on this, you'll know we talked a lot about Nostr from the perspective of a creator, an artist, or a writer.
Right. We focused on creator sovereignty, how the protocol lets them escape things like Content ID and DMCA takedowns by decoupling their work from any single platform.
Exactly. That was all about protecting the creator's output. This time, we're flipping the script entirely. We're focusing on the consumer side.
We're untangling the identity crisis, the relief, the security, and the huge economic upside that this kind of identity sovereignty offers you, the person who right now is probably juggling hundreds of separate accounts.
It's the difference between being a tenant, constantly having to prove yourself to different landlords,
and becoming a sovereign landowner in your own digital life. All because you hold your own key, and that shift has a massive, measurable economic payoff.
Okay, before we dive into the architecture, we just want to take a second and say thank you. The response to the show has been amazing.
It really has. The engagement we're seeing, especially over on YouTube, is incredible. It's clear you're all as fascinated by this stuff as we are.
And that engagement is so vital. We're trying to unlock some funding to do more with the show, specifically for a tool called Mosaic AI Video Editor to create high-quality companion videos. To do that, we need to hit 1,000 subscribers across all platforms.
Yeah, so if you could just take a second, please subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening or watching. It's a tiny click for you, but hitting that milestone is huge for us. It lets us dedicate more resources to making these deep dives even better.
We really appreciate it. And with that, let's get into the architectural flaw at the heart of this whole problem.
So the issue we're talking about today, it's not a new bug or a recent mistake. It's an original sin. It's baked into the very design of the internet because, well, the internet was never built to do what we use it for today.
You have to go back to its original purpose, right? If you look at HTTP, the Hypertext Transfer Protocol, what was its one job?
It had a very simple mandate. Retrieve documents, that's it. It was designed to be a huge distributed digital library. You'd ask for a page, the server would send it, and then it would completely forget the transaction ever happened.
Stateless. That's the key word, isn't it? And that's the ancestor of our $2 trillion problem.
It is. Because if the server instantly forgets you, how can you do anything that requires continuity? Like, how do you do online banking or have a social media profile or even just a simple shopping cart?
You can't, not with that original design.
The foundational protocols, TCP/IP, they were brilliant at figuring out where a request was coming from, the IP address, and what it wanted, but there was absolutely no mechanism to know who was asking.
The concept of a persistent user just didn't exist in the blueprint.
It was totally absent. So when the web exploded in the 90s and people wanted to start building businesses and communities, developers had to.
Yeah.
Well, they had to hack a solution on top of a protocol that wasn't designed for it.
And that hack, that makeshift fix, is the user account model that we're all stuck with today.
Precisely. Every single service had to build its own private, isolated database. A little black book, basically, that just maps a username or an email to a password.
And that's where the fragmentation crisis starts. Instead of one digital passport for the whole web, we got this. This nightmare of millions of separate, fragile little databases scattered all over the globe.
And we, the users, are forced to maintain a unique ID card for every single one of them.
And that fragmentation is the real killer. It's not just having 255 accounts. It's that those 255 accounts live on 255 different servers with different rules, different security.
And often completely arbitrary and contradictory password policies.
Oh, don't get me started on the arbitrary rules. Why, in this day and age, do some sites still not allow special characters, while others demand a password so complex you're guaranteed to forget it?
It's because the underlying system, that centralized database, is fundamentally weak. Those rules are just. They're like superficial security theater layered on top of a bad design. They're trying to patch a single point of failure. The whole system is just mathematically and psychologically impossible for a normal human to manage.
So what about these so-called fixes? Like, we have password managers now, and two-factor authentication is everywhere. Aren't those helping?
They're complicated bandages on a very deep wound. A password manager helps you organize the mess, but it doesn't get rid of the mess. The target on the server is still there.
You're just moving the single point of failure from your brain to a master password.
Exactly. And 2FA, while it's definitely a good thing, it adds more friction. Now you need your phone, you need an app, you're waiting for a code, just to prove you are who you say you are.
So the entire security industry has been focused on treating the symptoms of the original sin instead of curing the disease itself.
That's a perfect way to put it. And this model creates this insane security liability. When one of these databases gets breached, the damage cascades everywhere because, of course, people reuse passwords. The architecture practically forces you into bad habits.
And this ties right back into the idea of sovereignty we talked about last time. If your identity is just an entry in Facebook's or Google's database, you're not in control. You're just a tenant.
And they're the landlord. They can evict you anytime. They can delete your account, block your access, censor what you say, all because they own the authentication mechanism. You are completely dependent on their platform.
Which is fundamentally at odds with the whole idea of a free and open web. We're paying for this broken architecture not just with our time, but with our freedom.
And the monetary price, as we're about to calculate, is just staggering. It's time to put a hard number on this password tax.
Okay, so we've established the architecture is broken. Now let's get into the economics. The password tax, as we're defining it, is the global economic value lost purely to the friction of managing all these different digital identities.
And it's really important to emphasize what this calculation leaves out. The sources are very clear on this. We are deliberately not including the massive secondary costs,
Right.
like the actual dollar amount lost to fraud or identity theft, or the cost to businesses for compliance, or the legal fallout from these massive data breaches we see every other week.
So the number we're about to get to is the absolute floor. It's the bare minimum cost based only on wasted time.
The cost of user friction alone. So let's start with our variables based on 2024 data. First up is you, the global internet population.
Okay.
We're using data from the International Telecommunication Union, the ITU, which puts the number of active online users in 2024 at roughly 5.5 billion people.
5.5 billion. That's our market size for this problem.
Yeah.
It's basically the whole connected world.
Right. Now for the real multiplier. Variable A, the average number of accounts per person.
This is the one that always shocks me. What's the latest research say?
The 2024 cybersecurity studies put the average person as having approximately 255 distinct online accounts.
255. Just let that sink in. That is an insane number of digital relationships to maintain.
It's completely unsustainable. And that breaks down into about 168 personal accounts. You know, your Netflix, your bank, your email, and another 87 work-related accounts for all the different software and systems you have to use.
Wow. So now we need T, the time burden. How much friction do we assign to each of those 255 accounts?
The paper is extremely conservative here. It assumes a friction cost of just 1 minute per account per month.
1 minute. That feels incredibly low.
Mm.
I mean, a single password reset can take 5 minutes easy.
It is low, and that's intentional. It's to create a baseline that's impossible to argue with. That 1 minute covers everything: typing in your password, dealing with a 2FA pop-up, the occasional reset, creating a new account. It's a blended average.
Okay, so it's very conservative estimate. Let's do the math on the individual level then.
All right, you take 255 accounts, multiply that by 1 minute per month, and then by 12 months in a year.
Okay, so 255 times 12.
Yeah.
That's 3,060 minutes per year.
Right. And if we convert that into a unit that makes more sense, 3,060 minutes is about 51 hours per person per year.
51 hours. That's more than a standard work week.
It is. The average internet user is spending almost 7 full 8-hour days every single year just on the administrative busy work of proving who they are online. That is pure deadweight loss to the economy.
And that's just the time. It doesn't even touch on the frustration, the cognitive load of it all.
Not at all. Now let's scale it. We take those 51 hours wasted per person and multiply it by our 5.5 billion users.
This is going to be a big number.
It's a huge number. The total global hours wasted comes out to about 280.5 billion hours per year.
280.5 billion hours of human potential just gone. So how do we put a dollar value on that?
We use a conservative monetary value based on the global GDP per capita. Using IMF projections for 2025, the average global value of an hour of human labor is around $7.02 USD.
Okay, so 280.5 billion hours times $7.02. The final number is?
The final calculation for the password tax is approximately $1.97 trillion USD. The analysis puts the annual drain in a range of $1.8 to $2.0 trillion.
Wow. Nearly $2 trillion.
Yeah.
To put that in perspective, that's roughly the entire GDP of a country like Canada or Italy.
An entire advanced industrialized economy wiped out every year because of a 30-year-old design flaw. It's an economic crisis hidden in plain sight.
Which means we have a $2 trillion incentive to find a better way. An architectural solution.
Exactly. And that solution brings us to Nostr.
So we've established the problem is architectural and the cost is astronomical. So the solution, logically, has to be architectural too.
Which is where Nostr comes in. And right off the bat, we need to be really clear about what Nostr is and what it isn't. It's not a company, it's not an app, it's an open protocol. Think of it like HTTP, the language of the web. It's a set of simple rules for communication.
And its whole purpose is to provide that identity layer that the original internet was missing.
That's the core goal. And it does it with two incredibly simple separate components: clients and relays.
Okay, so the client is just the app I use on my phone or my computer, right? That's where I type my messages.
Yes. Your client is your interface. It's where your identity lives, and it's what you use to create and, crucially, sign events.
And the relays. I've heard them called dumb servers. Why is being dumb so important here?
Their dumbness is their superpower. A relay has one job: store and forward messages. That's it. They're designed not to understand the data, not to enforce rules, and not to hold your identity.
So by making them simple message passers, you take away their power. They can't censor you or control you because they don't have the intelligence to?
Exactly. And this design gives you incredible resilience. As a user, you're not tied to any single relay. You can send your messages, your events, to 10 or 100 or however many relays you want all at once.
So if one relay decides to ban me or get shut down, it doesn't matter. My identity and my data are still available in the other 99.
Your digital life continues, uninterrupted. The platform loses its coercive power. This brings us to the identity itself, the sovereign key. This is what replaces the username and password.
Okay, break it down for me. The sovereign key is made of two parts, right?
Yes, it's a standard cryptographic key pair. You have your private key, which is called an NSEC. This is your secret. It's a long, random string of characters that is, for all intents and purposes, you. You must protect it. The mantra is not your keys, not your identity.
Okay, but that immediately brings up a huge usability issue. The current system sucks, but at least I can reset my password. If I lose this private key, I'm just locked out forever. Isn't that a massive barrier for, 5.5 billion normal people?
It is the necessary trade-off for true sovereignty. You are shifting the risk from a vulnerable central server to your own personal responsibility. But the ecosystem is building tools to make this manageable, secure signer apps, hardware wallets. You're placing your key in a highly secure local vault instead of a public-facing database that's constantly under attack.
That's a fair point. It's about concentrating your security in one place you control. So what's the second part of the key?
That's your public key, or NPUB. This is derived mathematically from your private key, and it's completely safe to share. It becomes your global username, your public address that anyone can see.
So the magic is in how these two keys talk to each other to prove I am who I say I am without a password.
It's very elegant. Every action you take, a post, a login request, is packaged into a little bundle of data called a JSON event. Before you send it, your client uses your private NSEC to cryptographically sign that event.
And that signature is like a unique, unforgeable digital fingerprint on that specific piece of data.
Precisely. The event with the signature attached is then sent to the relays. And here's the beautiful part. Anyone, any other person or any website can take that event, look at your public NPUB, and mathematically verify that the signature could only have been created by the corresponding private key.
So that's it. That's the proof. You don't need a central server checking a password against a database anymore. The proof is right there in the message itself.
The centralized database becomes completely obsolete. Your identity, your private key, stays on your device. The verification is public and trustless. This single change eliminates the primary target for almost every major hack you've ever read about.
It's an incredible solution. It solves for both security and sovereignty at the same time. Okay, so let's talk about the killer app for this. How this system can replace the 255 accounts we're all trying to manage.
Right, because this is so much bigger than just social media.
Yeah, the early buzz around Nostr was all about decentralized Twitter, but the real power, the thing that tackles that $2 trillion tax, is using it as a universal login for the whole web.
And that functionality is defined in something called NIP46, or Nostr Connect. It's essentially a protocol for remote signing. It's the secure bridge that lets you log into any website without ever showing that site your private key.
So it's like having a secure vault for my identity. And websites can ask the vault for permission, but they can never look inside.
That's a perfect analogy. Your private key stays locked away in a trusted signer application. It could be an app on your phone or a browser extension. That signer is the only thing that ever touches your precious NSEC.
Okay, walk me through it. Let's say I go to a Nostr-enabled website. What does the login process look like?
Step 1. You go to the site. Instead of username and password fields, you see a button that says Connect with Nostr.
I click it.
Step 2, the site generates a request, often as a QR code on the screen. You just open your signer app on your phone and scan it. That creates a secure, encrypted connection between the website and your signer. The site still only knows your public key.
Okay, so we're connected. Now the site needs to confirm it's really me.
Right. So step 3, the website sends a challenge, a specific, unique login request over that secure channel to your signer app. A little pop-up appears on your phone saying, example.com wants you to sign in. Approve.
And I have to explicitly approve that specific request.
You do. Once you hit approve, your signer app uses your private key to sign that specific challenge and sends only the signature back to the website.
And the website can instantly verify that signature with my public key. And just like that, I'm logged in.
That's the entire flow. The whole concept of a login is just replaced by a secure, user-approved cryptographic signature.
So let's look at the impact on our password tax calculation. The A variable, the 255 accounts, that functionally goes down to 1.
It becomes 1, your sovereign key, and the 51 hours a year you spend managing those accounts. That friction cost drops to virtually 0. No more password resets, no more juggling 2FA apps. The tax is eliminated on the user side.
But what about the company side? This has to be a huge win for them too, which makes our $2 trillion figure seem even more conservative.
Oh, it's massive. If you're a developer, you no longer have to build, secure, and maintain a toxic database full of user passwords. Your security liability plummets.
Think of the cost savings. No more compliance audits for password storage. No more panicked all hands on deck when there's a breach.
All of that just goes away. They never hold the sensitive credentials, so they can't lose them. It frees up developers to actually innovate on their product instead of constantly reinventing the login box.
So it's a win-win. Less friction for 5.5 billion users and less cost and liability for millions of businesses.
While being fundamentally more secure because the centralized honeypot for hackers is gone.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate for a second. If my private key is my one key to everything, what happens if my phone, my signer app, gets compromised? Doesn't that mean I lose all 255 accounts at once?
That's the critical question. The security model shifts from what we could call distributed vulnerability to concentrated security. And yes, if your signer is compromised, that's very serious. However, the NIP46 model requires you to manually approve every single sensitive action.
So a hacker can't just silently drain my bank account in the background. They'd have to get me to physically approve the transaction on my phone.
Exactly. It adds a crucial step of explicit, transparent user consent. It's a massive leap forward from the current world, where your password can be stolen from a server 1,000 miles away, and you won't even know until it's too late.
It puts the control and the awareness back in the hands of the user.
It's the architectural fix that finally starts to heal the internet's original sin.
So we've gone from the problem to the cost to the solution. And this shift, I mean, it's more than just a tech upgrade, isn't it? It feels like a real paradigm shift in how the internet works.
It absolutely is. We're talking about a fundamental change from a centralized, platform-dependent model of identity to one that is decentralized and sovereign. It's about reclaiming ownership of our digital selves.
We stop being entries in someone else's database and start being, well, ourselves, verified by math that we control. The power flows from the center back to the individual.
And when you do that, you unlock so much innovation. When you remove the friction of creating an account, when identity becomes a simple zero-cost utility, it becomes so much easier to build and try new things.
The friction of just signing up for a new service is a huge barrier. If that disappears, you have to imagine it would accelerate everything from e-commerce to social media to, well, everything.
And that brings us back to the economics. The sources make a really profound point about this. At internet scale, even a tiny improvement in efficiency leads to billions of dollars in productivity gains.
And this isn't a tiny improvement. This is an improvement at the very core of how the web functions.
Which means our $1.97 trillion figure for the password tax has to be seen as deeply, deeply conservative.
Right, because that number is just the cost of our wasted time. It doesn't include any of the secondary effects.
It doesn't. It doesn't account for all the online purchases that are abandoned because someone forgot their password at checkout. It doesn't account for the billions that companies spend on security and compliance just to manage these password databases, or the cost of litigation after a breach.
When you add all that up, the true systemic cost of this broken identity model is probably much, much higher than $2 trillion a year. The economic case for a protocol like Nostr is just overwhelming.
It becomes an urgent infrastructure upgrade for the global economy. The old way is simply too expensive and too dangerous to continue.
Now, obviously this is all based on the research and technical specs that are available today. This story is still being written, and we really believe the community, you, our listeners, are a part of that.
Absolutely. We want this to be a conversation.
Yeah, so we want to hear from you. We've talked a lot about logging in, but what other parts of your digital life could be transformed by having a single sovereign identity? Think beyond just access. What about finance or voting, or even how we verify credentials like a university degree?
We'd love to hear your ideas on what that next layer of innovation looks like.
Definitely. But before we wrap up, let's leave everyone with a final, provocative thought to chew on.
Okay. If the simple, mundane friction of proving who you are costs the world nearly $2 trillion every year, what is the unseen astronomical cost we are all paying right now for the architectural flaws in our global payment systems, which are still built on these ancient centralized banking models?
And maybe even scarier, what's the cost of the architectural flaws in our information systems? In the centralized platforms that control what we see and what we're allowed to say?
If identity is a $2 trillion leak, you have to wonder what other, even bigger problems are hiding in the architecture of our digital world.
That is definitely a deep dive for another day. Thank you so much for joining us as we deconstructed the trillion-dollar identity tax.
And thank you for the support. If you enjoyed this and you want to help us make more of them, please don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Hitting that 1,000 subscriber goal is really key for us to unlock new resources.
We truly appreciate it, and we will see you next time for the next deep dive.